just, you know, I dabbled, and it just never worked. But I took a class in 2007 called Critical Vanguard Studies by Dr. Mike Sell, who was my mentor. He also coined the term Critical Vanguard Studies. And at the same time, not to be a brown-noser, but I was reading Anthony's book that he did with Stephen Best, Terrorists or Freedom Fighters, and I was introduced to the Animal Liberation Front. And what I began to make connections between the avant-garde and the animal liberation movement. So for example, when I say surrealists, what automatically comes to mind to people? You can just shout out an answer. Surrealists or surrealism? Art, yeah. Any particular artists or types of art? Dadaism, yeah. Impressionism, yeah, they were influenced by the Impressionists. But what I focused on was the surrealists, who people think of as artists, but they were so much more than that. What I found out is that they were social theorists, they were social activists with this goal of changing how people perceive the world. And I said, what a noble goal this is, and I realized it's also the goal of the animal liberation movement, is to change how people perceive the world. From war as an inevitability, that was what the surrealists, let's say, were challenging, to humans need meat to survive. And then we're trying to change perception at a core level. But then what I also learned in this process was that the surrealists were really, really sexist, misogynistic, and they were so open-minded, but they couldn't see the role that women could possibly play in this movement. And there are elements of that in the animal rights movement as well. So I started with that connection. And once the connection was made, and I watched a movie called Behind the Mask about the Animal Liberation Front, I could no longer sit on my laurels. So I went vegan. I had been vegetarian. And I started volunteering at a no-kill animal shelter. I started volunteering at a domestic abuse shelter. And I'm like, and it's kind of what I had always disliked. That's why I'm glad I could say this in front of all these people. What I always disliked about people in academics, because I don't consider myself an intellectual or an academic, was people who just wrote about things but didn't do anything. And I met a lot of people like that. And you guys, of course, are not those people, so I feel like I could say it for you. But that's kind of why I'm like, you know, do I want to be one of those people? And I couldn't. And I couldn't not write a dissertation, to me, that wasn't socially meaningful in some way. And then what kind of wound up happening is, as I was writing I never thought I'd publish. I didn't want to publish. I just wanted a quiet community college job where I could, I don't know, watch TV during my spare time and travel during summers and things like that. But when I started writing this, I started making the connections, kind of like, Julie, when you were talking about your book, and I interviewed Carol Adams for this book, the interlocked oppressions. And once I started writing about animal issues, I could not write about women's issues, and I couldn't not write about anarchism. So I did a workshop recently on anarchism and animal liberation, so now I know where that connection version, I didn't think I made it up, but I now know where it originated. So I wound up writing this, factoring in I'm not just going to read the book jacket, but it's very interdisciplinary. As one of my readers said, I was juggling a lot. I had a lot of balls in the air when I was writing this book. But it's the only way I could see the world now, because I felt like I had been, I had woken up much in the way the surrealists wanted the world to wake up and see it doesn't have to be this way. So I have this book to show for it. It's hopefully interesting. I haven't read a review, but I'm getting good feedback from my mom. Yeah. And friends who read the whole thing, 2 friends who read the whole thing, one who said, and you'll pardon my language, she said it's punk as fuck, which she meant as a compliment, and another who said, I actually could read this book. Like, I thought it was just going to be all this intellectual mumbo jumbo, which it was not. There might be some of that in there. I talk about Habermas, so there's still going to be a little bit of mumbo jumbo. So then I'm working on this. I have another book coming out. It's an anthology where I'm trying to work with, just like David had said, where you want to work with with the community. That's really important to me. It's why I was drawn to the Institute for Critical Animal Studies, which Anthony co-founded and I published through their book series, is they were looking for books from activists too. And this book I'm co-editing and writing for attempts is to get just local Twin Cities animal rights activists to have a say on a national scale. And I'm doing some other publishing, and it just happened. It's not a prerequisite for tenure, which is fine because one of the presses isn't peer reviewed, the one I'm doing the anthology for, so I probably wouldn't get much credit for that because they don't count. But I can't not do it now because it's so meaningful. And then I had just started doing the MINCOSA program, working with I worked with women who were the victims of abuse, or survivors of abuse, I should say. But I'm looking at it from the other angle. It's men. There are very few female sex offenders, men who are being released into the community, helping them with re-entry into the community. I'm doing work with Save the Kids in the juvenile detention facility, so I started doing some prison justice activism as well. And I just kind of can't stop now that I've started. And I could say I'm mad at myself for waiting so long, but I learned something in my 20s, and I had a little bit of fun too during my self-destructive period. But despite all this, and even though, again, I will keep writing, I will keep doing activism. I'm up for tenure at the end of the semester, purely based on teaching. Just like Walter had said, I agree with you. I consider myself a teacher who writes, not a writer who teaches. And I love teaching. I love the community college, just like Anthony had said, and I refuse to ever apply anywhere else if I have to move than a community college. Even though they're going to be fighting for me and courting me after I keep publishing my books. I'm going to say no. Only.
Thank you so much.
So thank you for listening.
We have a little bit of time for questions and comments. And just yep.
I just wanted to ask Kim, where do you teach now?
Normandale.
Oh, you teach at Normandale.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do you do any adjunct teaching in any of the Twin Cities universities?
No.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking.
Full time. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking it might be really a nice idea for you to work with an education department at one of the Twin Cities universities, maybe Hamline, and develop a graduate level course on teaching at the community college.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Yeah, you'd be a perfect person to do it, and you could sneak in some of your progressive stuff.
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea. I don't
Be
know
all
if that even
methodology.
exists.
But that's really a neat course. I took it when I was going through my doctoral work because I was considering that option of going into the teaching in community colleges, and it just opened up all the doors.
Yeah.
I was being sought after by community colleges because I had taken this graduate level course, and because I think it's important to community colleges that people who work there are, like you, interested in the community college, which I was, at the time also, given my background. I didn't end up there, but I could have. And so anyway, that's my, just a suggestion that you might want to think about.
I will.
Might be a fun thing to do.
Yeah, thank you.
So comments or questions, and I know, there's different organizations that are stepping up at Hamline University, right? Like Tessin, so many other people are involved, most of his staff that are involved in like hip hop activism. And but then there's also a lot of other stuff that's going on, just like Yakasa and Stephanie and some others might be involved in an organization called the Move, right? Is that it?
The movement.
The movement. And it's about basically students having complaints about policies on Hamline, campus, funding issues,